Speaker voicing support for the files to come out. Representative Massey collecting signatures that would force a discharge petition for a vote on the floor for this. It doesn't seem to be going away. What is stopping the administration from just redacting any sensitive information, grand jury information, and putting out what is appropriate so that the American people can decide and then let this story die?
Well, in terms of redactions or grand jury seals, those are questions for the Department of Justice. Those are also questions for the judges who have that information under a seal. And that would have to be requested, and a judge would have to approve it. That's out of the president's control. He has said, in agreement with some of the leaders on Capitol Hill, that if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice come across any other credible evidence, they should provide that to the American people. The president has said that, and he agrees with them on that.
So I want to talk about former model Stacey Williams today. Stacey Williams dated Jeffrey Epstein in the 90s, and she said that Trump and Epstein were definitely friends. They were up to no good. Reddit said started making trouble in the neighborhood, and it's great. The point is that this was somebody that had just started dating Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein says to Miss Williams, "Hey, Trump thinks you're hot. We should go to his office." And then they do. And then immediately in front of assistants, in front of other people, in front of Epstein, Trump starts groping Miss Williams, like out in public. And Miss Williams had had a reputation in the modeling community for not being one to just accept people touching her like that. But she did let this happen with Trump. The whole time Epstein and Trump are just carrying on a friendly conversation, Epstein and Williams go to the elevator to leave. And then Epstein is pissed at her for not reacting negatively because he had expected that. I'm going to pull out a little locker room talk. I'm betting the conversation they had, "Oh, I bet that she won't let you touch her like that. You know how she is in the modeling community." And then she did. So it was like Epstein felt like he lost a wager. Trump sent a postcard to Miss Williams after the fact, like, "Oh, you're home away from home." These were creeps. They stayed friendly creeps for decades until 2004. When they both wanted the same Palm Beach property. Trump had to outbid Jeffrey Epstein for this property to get it, and I'm betting he didn't like how much he had to pay because of Epstein. An anonymous tip suddenly comes out, then the FBI starts investigating Epstein for his first sex offenses. That's why they're no longer friendly, is because of some petty bullshit about a property that Trump wanted. Because if you take away Trump's toys, he will snitch on you, he will lie about you, he will burn you, he will sue you for $10 billion like a Wall Street Journal, and I bet that Robert Murdoch is really second-guessing his entire Fox News franchise right now when he's dealing with that.
Liberals were right, fundamentally, about Trump.
Donald Trump's dark past continues to surface, and we here at the Midas Touch Network have this exclusive report for you. We've managed to locate video from a 1991 beauty pageant called Look of the Year that Donald Trump threw with a guy named John Casablancas from Elite Model Management. Casablancas died in 2013, allegedly from throat cancer. Casablancas had affairs, sexually assaulted 15-year-old girl, a 17-year-old girl. I'm going to go through Casablancas' background with you. We hear a lot about Trump's connections with Epstein. Donald Trump was also very close with this Casablancas guy who Elite Model Agency was used to prey on underage girls as well. All right, so let me share this with you. This was from the Guardian's report on it. Let me read for you with
Donald Trump's lawsuit against the Murdochs and the Wall Street Journal just got some bad news for him. Trump sued the Murdochs and the Wall Street Journal in the Southern District of Florida, hoping that he would get a far-right MAGA-appointed federal judge, maybe one that he even appointed himself. But this morning, we're now learning that the lawsuit got appointed to none other than Judge Darren Gales. Judge Gales is an Obama appointee. He was actually nominated and confirmed back in 2014 by a margin of 98-0. He was unanimously confirmed because people thought that he was fair and honest. And I'll say this. It's bad news in the sense of Trump wanted a Republican appointee. Trump wanted someone who would be more favorable to him. But it's good news for the rule of law. As an attorney, I actually practice in the Southern District of Florida regularly. I've seen Judge Gales in action, and there is truly no better judge in that district than Judge Gales. He's fair, he's honest, and he's not going to take any BS, which is significant here because this case, for a lot of legal experts, really is one built on a number of just untruths. You're suing a journalist, you're suing a journalism company over a piece of reporting that was theoretically vetted, that was theoretically looked at by a number of other lawyers and journalists. And while here, Judge Gales is not going to take lightly to any BS coming from Trump's team. So it's bad news for him in that sense. And it comes after a night in which Donald Trump was attacking Barack Obama and other political opponents like Adam Schiff. Overnight, Donald Trump posted multiple times on his Truth Social page. The first related to President Obama in a tan jumpsuit, along with President Obama's staffers like Susan Rice and other senior staffers from 2016 in orange jumpsuits. He then posted another video showing President Obama being tackled and arrested on the ground inside the Oval Office. The video actually depicted a meeting between Donald Trump and President Obama, that they were meeting together. I believe it was actually when Trump visited the White House after his win in November of 2016. And then that video depicted President Obama literally being tackled by Secret Service agents and being thrown to the ground and arrested. And meanwhile, he also went after Senator Adam Schiff. He's been going after Adam Schiff multiple times over the past several weeks. He's very upset. He believes that Adam Schiff was somehow engaging in some mortgage fraud by claiming a residence in an improper area. And while overnight, Donald Trump put out this Truth Social post saying, quote, Adam Shifty Schiff is in big trouble. He falsified loan documents. He once said my son would go to prison on a scam that Schiff, along with other crooked Democrats, illegally manufactured in order to stage an actual coup. My son did nothing wrong, knew nothing about the fictional story. It was an American tragedy. Now Shifty should pay the price of prison for a real crime, not one made up by corrupt accusers. So let's talk about that for a second. He's going after President Obama related to the 2016 election, in which Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump's intelligence chief, the director of national intelligence, recently said that she's going to be essentially putting out a criminal referral to the Justice Department to potentially investigate and prosecute President Obama and other senior Obama-era officials over what they're calling to be a conspiracy theory based on the 2016 Steele dossier, which in their view has now been discredited related to Russian interference in the election. Taking that for a second, no, President Obama is not going to be prosecuted anytime soon. In fact, under the United States Supreme Court its own ruling, President Obama would have absolute immunity given the fact that he was in office, assuming he did anything wrong. But even making that assumption is a bit of a leap because there's no evidence to corroborate that President Obama or any of his top national security officials engaged in this long-standing conspiracy to steal the presidency away from Donald Trump. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is Senator Adam Schiff. And the reason why Donald Trump is going after Adam Schiff so much is because he is upset that Schiff was one of the lead prosecutors, if not the lead prosecutor, in the first impeachment trial. And the impeachment trial related to Donald Trump's quote-unquote perfect phone call associated with Ukraine. So he's very upset and he's lashing out at those he perceives to be political enemies. And right now, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up trying to use the Justice Department to try to manufacture a charge against Adam Schiff or someone else in an effort to stay away from the Epstein files, which is something that Donald Trump does not want people talking about. I know over the weekend we talked about how Pam Bondi in the Department of Justice filed essentially a motion to unseal the grand jury proceedings under Donald Trump regarding the Epstein files. I told you how that's going to be very difficult. It will be very difficult. You don't just unseal grand jury proceedings just because you want to. A federal judge has to grant that request. And right now, there's no indication that a federal judge will grant it. And even if a federal judge did grant Bondi's request, what's going to end up happening here is it's going to take several weeks, if not months, for the federal judge and his clerks to go through the thousands of pages of Epstein documents to determine what is and what can and cannot be released to the public. But we did learn over the weekend that Maria Farmer, who was one of Epstein's victims, actually spoke to the FBI on 2 occasions in 1996 and in 2006 about an uncomfortable experience she had with Donald Trump. Now, here's the thing. Having an uncomfortable experience is one thing. Talking to the FBI and the FBI not following up is another thing. So that's what would be in these Epstein files, adjacent or aside from the grand jury proceedings, is the Farmer 302s, which are essentially memos written by FBI agents related to a conversation they had with Epstein's victims, with Maria Farmer. That's something that the Department of Justice has and could theoretically release to the public should it want to, but there is no indication that the DOJ actually wants to do that. So we're going to have to see what happens there. In non-Trump and non-Epstein news, we learned this morning of a Human Rights Watch report that came out that showed horrific conditions in 3 detention centers in South Florida, specifically one in Miami at the Crome Detention Center, along with a Broward Detention Center and the downtown Miami jail, which have all held undocumented migrants over the past several months. This report detailed how migrants in these ICE detention centers were reportedly subjected to treatment that forced them to eat on the ground, quote, like dogs, them being shackled, them being denied basic hygiene and medical care, them being confined in overcrowded and unsanitary conditions. The report was based on numerous interviews by advocacy groups detailing widespread abuses in the 3 facilities. We have reports of holding detainees on buses for over 24 hours, cramming people into frigid intake rooms without beds, and turning off cameras during violent crackdowns. And most of the migrants, folks, they're not criminals. They were never charged with a crime. In fact, ICE detention numbers are now reaching nearly 56,400 per day, a sharp rise from an average of 37,500 in 2024. And the surge in reported abuses follows increased immigration enforcement under Donald Trump. Remember, the big, beautiful budget bill that was passed earlier this year set aside hundreds of billions of dollars for immigration enforcement activities, like building new facilities, like hiring more ICE agents, so that they can continue deporting undocumented migrants in the United States of America. So we'll see what happens there. We had some plane news overnight. First, a Delta regional pilot is now apologizing to passengers after making a sudden maneuver to avoid a near collision with a B-52 bomber near Minot, North Dakota. The incident is now under investigation, and it occurred without prior warning from air traffic control, prompting the pilot to explain the evasive action and reassure mid-flight passengers. Second, Alaska Airlines grounded all Alaska and Horizon Air flights Sunday night due to an unexplained IT outage, the second fleet-wide grounding in just over a year. This is raising new concerns about cyber vulnerabilities within Alaska Airlines, but generally within the aviation industry. The Trump administration's sweeping cuts at the U.S. State Department through mass firings, buyouts, and a proposed 48% budget slash have triggered allegations of unlawful actions, gutted human rights programs, silenced seasoned staff, and replaced them with far-right ideologues. Today, there's a major battle in court as Harvard is going to court to challenge the Trump administration's freeze on over $2 billion in research funding that is supposed to go to Harvard. So we'll see what happens there, whether or not a federal court will continue to block the research freeze. The United Kingdom may soon back down from its demand that Apple provide British law enforcement agencies with backdoor access to customer data. And finally, a Bangladesh Air Force jet crashed into a school in Dhaka shortly after takeoff, killing at least 18 people, including the pilot, and injuring over 160 others. The cause of this terrible crash is still under investigation. Folks, that's all the news right now. If you want to support my work, subscribe today or send a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas, and I'll see you this evening for more.
They said what happened the night before the event. Then I'm going to show you some of the video that we've been able to locate at the Midas Touch Network. So now I have the videotape of the Look of the Year 1991 competition. I have the full event. It's too hard to watch. If you want me to post it, I'll post it on another thread. But let me just show you some of the lowlights of this event. This is what happened, and you can see that these are young girls. These are little girls dressed like in very little clothing, dancing, and just watch for yourself. Let's play.
Fox News anchor Gretchen Carlson and also Barry Levine, author of The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Ryan, DOJ just asking a federal judge to make this public, this grand jury testimony in the Epstein case. When, and if this judge releases this, will the public learn anything potentially useful?
So it's first an uphill battle to get a judge to release grand jury materials, especially because this doesn't really fit any of the statutory or regulatory reasons that a court would do that. The court would have to find that it has inherent powers. Very unusual. And then at the end of the day, I don't think it's the material that the public really wants. The public wants to know what other individuals were involved in sexual abuse of minors. It's probably not in these grand jury materials. The grand jury indictments, in fact, are very limited to Maxwell and Epstein's abuse of minors and do not mention other individuals. So there's every likelihood with those narrow indictments, they weren't even presented with that. I think the real material that the public wants is in the DOJ's offices. It's not what was presented to the grand jury.
Yeah, I see Gretchen and Barry, both of you nodding to that. So, Barry, talk about some of that other information that would not be contained in grand jury testimony.
Of course, Brianna. The transparency is really what all of us want here. And there's over 100,000 pages of documents, of FBI files. And of course, as he was just saying, the grand jury testimony is really limited to what the indictment said was the period of time from 2002 to 2005 when Epstein abused women in Palm Beach at his mansion there and in New York. We're looking for the complete transparency of all the files so we can learn about the interviews that had been conducted over the years by the FBI. We can learn the details of the autopsy report after Jeffrey Epstein's death behind bars. I'm particularly interested in his primary accuser, Virginia Giuffre. She had named six or seven prominent individuals who she said she had been trafficked to. Did the FBI try to corroborate any evidence related to these men? Are there interviews with any of these men? Are there interviews with any associates? There has to be a great deal of information in those files that could help us understand the 2 decades of sexual abuse of more than 1,000 victims.
Gretchen, whatever is released, I mean, you would expect a lot would be redacted, from victims' names to accusers' names to people who may have been accused, but nothing at this point is founded, right? I mean, you can't just put the names out there in these legal filings of people.
Bad news for Donald Trump, good news for the American people. Clearly, you know, by Trump's attacks now doing the AI-generated video of Obama being arrested in the White House by the FBI. By the way, he's a former president. They have total immunity. Remember that, Donald? The other video or the post on Truth Social with all of the basic Obama team in an orange jumpsuit. Donald, I hate to be the one to tell you, I think the only one that's won the orange jumpsuit and the mugshot, I think that's you. And guess what? Clearly, with all these distractions, and then was it Gabbard saying that they're going to do this after Obama and his administration, all these crimes they committed in the 2016 election, all this other garbage. The heat from Jeffrey Epstein and the truth coming out in these files is huge. And Donald Trump is doing everything he can to distract from it. Did you see the Wall Street Journal article? Jane Farmer, and she mentions one president in there a lot. I won't say which one, but you know which one. Yep. The truth is getting close and the fire is getting hot. The heat in the kitchen is overwhelming. And I don't think there's any more ketchup to throw to cool things down. But you know what? The truth is coming. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has joined on board with Democrats to sign the discharge petition. And they've got enough signatures to do that. The truth is going to come out and somebody's going to go down. And you know who it's going to be. And it's not going to be Obama. Not going to be Obama. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, everybody involved with the cover-up, bye-bye. And the Orange Jesus, no more president. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know. Love yours, my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, burned out light bulbs. He would not be screaming and raising all this cane if it wasn't close and he needed to distract, and it's not working. We're not biting.
A conspiracy theory about a dead sex criminal now threatens to do it a violent insurrection. 34 felony convictions. calling U.S. soldiers, quote, losers and suckers, and a litany of broken promises from the economy to foreign policy could not drive a wedge of fury and betrayal between the MAGA political movement and its dear leader, Donald Trump. Donald Trump so far has failed to tamp down the rage from his own supporters after Attorney General Pam Bondi put out a memo rejecting conspiracy theories about Jeffrey Epstein, fueled largely by Bondi's closest colleagues, the director and deputy director of the FBI, facing backlash from the most devoted members of Trump's base and a nasty public feud between his hand-picked deputy FBI director and his hand-picked attorney general. Trump turned to a familiar tactic: project and inexplicably and without evidence find some Democrats to blame. In a post, Trump claimed that the Epstein files were written by Democrats. Again, there's no evidence that that's true. And it's worth pointing out, Epstein died in 2019 when Donald Trump was president. Trump also defended his attorney general, Pam Bondi, from attacks, adding this, quote, "We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening," end quote. But many of Trump's allies and supporters aren't buying that. Take a listen to MAGA influencer Benny Johnson.
By admitting that the Epstein files are real and have been written and that you've read them and you don't like their contents and they were written by your enemies, doesn't make the most compelling case as far as I'm concerned. Holy moly.
But perhaps nothing sums up the rage that members of the MAGA base feel right now than this moment. It took place at the Turning Point Conference on Friday.
How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation? Clap. Okay, I told you to clap. You guys aren't listening. I'm not going to grade you on a curve. So I was going to get to that. How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation? It looks like it's going to be, and now this is like the who's going to be off the island first, right? This is who's going to be voted off the island first.
Who is going to be voted off the island first? Inquiring minds want to know.
Throughout all of the conversations that have been had about Epstein over the years, it is indisputable that this thing is far bigger than any of us could imagine. These crimes go back decades and have probably reached every elite circle across the globe. And I do not think that that ended with his death. Do I believe that these crimes happened? Absolutely. Do I believe that there are a ton of victims? Absolutely. Do I believe that there are a lot of powerful people who committed crimes against minors who will do anything, and I mean anything, to keep this stuff hidden? 100%. That is why I do believe that while this DOJ and FBI had access to a ton of information on these victims that were targeted by these people, there's a good chance that anything that would incriminate anybody besides Epstein was either destroyed by the Biden DOJ or moved to another location. And that is why, based on the information that we do have now, they would have to let us know that the evidence they have available to them only paints one man as guilty, and that would be a man who is already dead and cannot be tried while everybody else walks free. That means there is no denial of what these victims went through, but no evidence to go after anybody but a guy who's already in the ground. It also mean that there is still grounds to hold Ghislaine Maxwell on the charges of child trafficking.
Well, it looks like we have some Thursday night breaking news. Donald Trump just requested that Pam Bondi release all of the grand jury related testimony subject to court approval from the Epstein case. Yeah, now half of you are going to say, well, this is all a part of the plan. Trump got the Democrats and everybody all excited. Now they want to see the Epstein file. They're going to see what they asked for. And some of you are going to say, it's too fucking late. He already showed his cards. Blah, blah, blah. It's not part of the plan. Put it that way. And public fucking attention pushed it here. So what does that tell you? He's listening to the people. So maybe some of you can have peace of mind not being cocksuckers. Because y'all are some nasty, disloyal motherfuckers out there. And hopefully you have a point of reflection and realize that.
I'm joined now by the Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He served as the lead impeachment manager during the second impeachment of Donald Trump. He was also a member of the January 6th Select Committee. He's the author of the book Unthinkable: Trauma, Truth, and the Trial.
Social media has erupted after a leaked video surfaced showing former President Donald Trump in what many are calling one of the most revealing moments of his post-presidency life. Captured by a hidden camera and now spreading rapidly on TikTok, X, and Instagram, the clip shows Trump in a private setting expressing what some creators are calling a moment of raw, unfiltered emotion. The video, which appears to have been recorded during a private meeting, has racked up millions of views in just hours. The phrase, "holy shitty," reportedly Trump's reaction after being shown a confidential document or message, is now trending, symbolizing the shock and intensity of what unfolded. While the exact context of the video remains under investigation, what has captured the Internet's attention is the authenticity. For a political figure often surrounded by cameras and prepared remarks, this behind-the-scenes footage paints a very different picture.
Treasury's Epstein file details, Mr. President, 4,725 wire transfers. Let me repeat that. 4,725 wire transfers, adding up to nearly $1.1 billion flowing in and out of just one of Mr. Epstein's bank accounts. If you ask me, that is more than 4,000 potential lines of investigation right there. Hundreds of millions more flowed through other accounts. That's even a lot more to investigate. The file shows that Mr. Epstein used multiple Russian banks, which are now under sanctions, to process payments related to sex trafficking. A lot of the women and girls he targeted came from Russia, Belarus, Turkey.
Wow, so just moments ago, Fox News cut away from Donald Trump's speech in South Carolina to fact-check him. When Fox News is fact-checking Trump, you know it's especially bad. Take a look at the clip.
Went to Nevada.
All right, we're continuing monitoring the president's remarks, and I mean no offense to him or some of you might want to continue hearing, but I did have to say that even though the former president is entitled to his opinions, he's not entitled to his own set of facts. The market has indeed been going up, but having nothing to do with him and everything to do with this aggressive cut in interest rates, or does a hiking in interest rates and stabilize inflation, and of course the whole artificial intelligence phenomenon that has benefited NVIDIA and a host of companies that are making money hand over fist. So that, whether you want to give Biden credit for that, has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Furthermore, he mentioned about gas prices out of whack, $6 a gallon. The national average right now is $3.26 cents a gallon. He went on to talk about the 2020 election and how that was rigged. This has been adjudicated many, many times, dozens of times. It's been investigated by everyone and his uncle. No fewer than 44 investigations launched.
The Epstein case, as well as the Epstein files and the Epstein client list, may be silenced by the Republican Party, but the victims are not going to stay silent. The victims, like these 12 right here, have actually come forward to tell everybody, and they decided to ignore it. Now, Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal have come forward with an article and a letter published and created by Donald Trump given to Epstein, talking about their bromance and their secret world and life. And Donald Trump threatened to sue Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion. And Rupert Murdoch says, bring it on, bitch. Now, that being said, he must have known that the New York Times had a similar article, because guess what? Just yesterday, Maria Farmer, and this is the two reports from FBI, in 1996 as well as 2006, actually went to the FBI, reported allegations, what I can only say is horrible encounters with Donald Trump. Now, Maria Farmer, if you didn't know, was another victim of Jeffrey Epstein's who actually had gone on record. So now I've just shown you 13 people that have literally been reported and told that they have been a victim of Epstein and his misdealings. But yet the Republican Party doesn't want to believe them. So exactly how many people have to come forward claim to be a victim of Jeffrey Epstein or even Donald Trump before the Republican Party is actually going to pull their head out of the sand, upholding the Constitution, upholding the laws of the land as they were written to protect the people that actually voted them into office? What do you guys think about the Epstein case? What do you think about the fact that the Republican Party is literally just keeping their mouths shut during all of this? And why is it that the victims are the ones that have to do all the heavy lifting? What do you guys think? Please leave a comment and repost.
Do not let up. This guy is still panicked. He is losing his shit still over the Epstein stuff. It's not going away. Now, as I'm recording right now, it's Monday morning, and I'm on vacation, so I'm not paying nearly as much attention to what's going on in the news as I normally do. But having my coffee this morning, I'm scrolling through the news, and one thing that is obvious is that the man is still friggin' panicked. And I think he's panicked for two main reasons. One, he is every bit the criminal sleazebag that we've always thought that he is. Every bit. He was right in there with Epstein. God only knows what this sick POS has done. But he knows. In fact, I bet one of the things that scares him is that he probably doesn't even remember everything that he's done. He's 79 years old. His brain, which he's always been a moron, but now he's an aging moron whose brain is turning to freaking mush. He probably can't even recall all the instances of criminality and depravity and abuse of women and young girls that he may have engaged in over the years. He probably can't even remember it all. I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the aspects that's freaking him out. But there are the things that he did, which he knows about, and maybe many of which he can't even remember anymore, that's freaking him out, that could come out. And I think what's even more scary to him is that he has no ability, apparently, or limited ability to control what comes out anymore. I think that has got him scared to death. Now, when he lashed out over that letter that came out, that letter that he wrote to Epstein, I hope that's not too loud in the video. Anyway, this letter that he wrote to Epstein for his 50th birthday, I mean, that is nothing compared to what could come out. And in fact, there are so many things worse that Trump has said and done and which has come out about him that, he didn't react.
Yes. You're 14 years old. Yeah, he knew very well my age. You know exactly, who he was hanging out with, I don't think he cared.
When Rose turned 15, she says things took a turn.
Just take your underwear off and get on top. And I said I didn't want to. And he, very forcefully, kind of brought me into the table, and I just did what he told me to do. I was really scared. I didn't necessarily think that he was, going to rape me.
Did he hold you there?
Yeah.
No question in your mind, he knew you did not want that to happen.
Oh, yeah. No, he definitely, yeah. There was no way. I was like, I don't want to say I was screaming or anything of that nature, but I was terrified, and I was telling him to stop. Please stop,
And did he?
No, he did not stop. He had no intentions of stopping, and that's what he wanted. That's what he got.
When you left there, You never went back.
After that day, no, I never went back. I was terrified. I was really scared because I didn't want that to happen again.
And you left school. Did you leave the school because it was in the same neighborhood?
Yeah, it was so close.
In your mind, did you use the word rape? Did you recognize it then as rape?
No, I don't think I did. I just thought, like, you know, it's my fault. Like, I was like obligated, like that's just what you're supposed to do. So I really did not know better.
When did you stop blaming yourself?
It was a long time, really.
Trump ran on destroying the deep state, so I just wonder, why is he working so hard to protect it? Trump's out here saying that even if a judge does release part of the grand jury, testimony and findings, that it still won't answer the questions that people really want answered about this Epstein case. So now Trump's a psychic. He already knows what the documents are going to say. See, Trump sold the fantasy that he was going to expose the evil. That's what he said. That the liberals were the villains and only he could bring the truth to the light. But now suddenly, he's a librarian with sealed records now all of a sudden. Let's not play dumb, folks. Trump and Epstein were friends for years. Like on the record, party together, Trump saying he's a terrific kind of guy, kind of friend. Because see, the more you talk about redactions, right, the less you're going to talk about that relationship between Trump and Epstein, and that's what they want. So again, I ask the question, if Trump was supposed to burn the deep state to the ground, why does he keep pouring water on the fire?
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.